There's one thing that obscures your clarity in your life, and if you're not aware of it, and you don't know how to recognize it, you just won't be clear about anything in your life. And that is what we have been calling a frightened part of your personality. In other words, fear. That is what obscures your clarity. But what's the opposite of fear? What is clarity? Love. Every personality in the Earth School has both frightened and loving parts, and you're learning to distinguish between the two. So if you want clarity in your life, you've got to, first of all, have the intention. We call the intention to have clarity, creating authentic power, real power. And when you do that, you enter the realm of love. You enter the realm of clarity. Welcome. It's good to be with you again. And for this Soul Feast, we have something that's especially juicy. The topic on this Soul Feast is clarity. So what does that mean, clarity? Well, everyone knows that if you're in your car and it's raining out and people are splashing dust and dirt and mud on your windshield, you can't see very clearly through the windshield, can you? So you turn on the windshield wipers. That doesn't work. It just smears the mud around. So then you figure out you can turn on the windshield wipers and spray the windshield with clean water. Now you can see it, Glenn. So that's one way of looking at clarity. How do you do that in your life? How do you get the windshield clean? Where's the clean water? And what is the mud and the dirt that got thrown up on the windshield? Well, now you've come to the right place, because we're talking about authentic power and creating authentic power. And that's what we always talk about on this podcast. So how do you gain clarity? The obscuration that gets thrown up in your vision every day is what we have been calling a frightened part of your personality. That's a part of your personality, for example, that you experience. Well, you have many different parts, and each of them has experiences, but frightened parts appear in many different ways. For example, jealousy, resentment, competitiveness, overwhelm, anxiety, superiority, inferiority, entitlement, need to please, and every compulsion, like can't step on a crack, or every obsession, like can't stop thinking about someone or something. You can't get it out of your mind. So what is the mud that gets thrown up on the windshield? Where did it come from? And what does a windshield wiper mean in this analogy? And where's the clean water that's going to wash off the mud when you combine it with the windshield? And wiper, and you know how it works. That's what we're going to talk about, because that's how you get clarity when you're driving. And if you have mud on your windshield and you can't see where you're going when you're driving, this is a problem. Because if you can't see where you're going, you're going to wind up some places that you probably don't want to be. You can avoid all of this. This is the place to learn how to do that. There's lots of places. You can come to our website at seatofthesoul.com. You can take a course. You can come to one of our events. You can listen to this podcast, and that brings us back to right here. There's one thing that obscures your clarity in your life, and if you're not aware of it, and you don't know how to recognize it, you just won't be clear about anything in your life. And that is what we have been calling a frightened part of your personality. In other words, fear. That is what obscures your clarity. But what's the opposite of fear? What is clarity? Love. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is fear. Fear is an illusion. The entire realm of fear is an illusion. That means it's not real. Well, you might say, wait a minute, my girlfriend just decided to leave me, and that sure feels like it's real. That actually happened, but the way you're looking at it is not with clarity. You're seeing it, if you're feeling emotional pain, through the lens of fear. When you see through the lens of love, which isn't really a good analogy because you don't see through the lens of love. When you do that, you are love. But when you are love, you see things differently, and that's clarity. For example, when you see something happening in the world, like death of a child, dissolution of a relationship, someone being rude to you on the freeway, and you have an emotional reaction, you are experiencing a frightened part of your personality. And there's one thing you can know when you experience a frightened part of your personality, and that is you're not seeing things the way they really are. That is the dirt. That is the mud that's being thrown up on your windshield. And the windshield is your awareness. Now, your awareness is much more than the frightened parts of your personality. It also includes the loving parts, which I've just discussed. Gratitude, appreciation, caring, contentment, all of the universe. When you're seeing through those parts of your personality, that's clarity. Because then you're seeing things the way they really are. For example, your girlfriend or your boyfriend decides that they're going to leave. In fact, they found somebody else they'd rather be with than you, and you're feeling emotional pain. Oh no! Or you're feeling loss or grief. So you try to find another boyfriend or another girlfriend, or you decide to eat some more food. Or if you're doing drugs, you try that. All of those are distractions, and all of those are hopelessly inadequate to what you want. What you want is clarity. What you want is love. What you want psychologically and emotionally is to get out of the pain. The pain is not coming from the boyfriend or the girlfriend who left. The pain is coming from an internal dynamic in you that activity in the world has activated, has brought to life in you. That internal dynamic is creating the painful experiences that you are encountering. Now, as you apply your emotional awareness, which we've talked about earlier, you look inside yourself. You don't look at the world anymore when you're in emotional pain. You look inside yourself. And you look at the areas in your body that, to start with, you look in your chest and your throat and your solar plexus areas. In the East, these are called chakras or energy centers. But because I'm not a Sanskrit speaker, I call them energy centers, energy processing centers, and you can too. So you look in these 3 energy processing centers, and there's 7 total, but these are the energy processing centers where it's easiest to feel sensations, physical sensations. And when you're in a frightened part of your personality, and you look in your energy processing centers, you'll see painful physical sensations. Physical sensations like aching, throbbing, burning, churning, stabbing, stinging, contracting, expanding. And if they're painful, and they will be when you're in a frightened part of your personality, you'll know you're in fear. And while you're there, so to speak, you can look at what you're thinking, because it's not what you're thinking now, it's what that frightened part of your personality is thinking. And those thoughts will always be judgmental and comparative. For example, oh, what a dismal day. Dreary, gray, water coming down everywhere from the sky. That's a frightened part of your personality, seeing what's happening in the world. A loving part of your personality would see the same thing, but experience it differently. It would say, what a magnificent day. If you have a Native American tradition, you say, Father Sky is blessing Mother Earth with this rain, with this moisture. And where is it coming from? It's coming from the ocean. The great gift of the oceans are evaporating, and the water, the holy water, is moving upward into the sky, into Father Sky, where it condenses. That's just a modern word for where these beautiful things that we're calling clouds form. And then from the clouds comes this beautiful rain that's falling on me and on the earth. That's a vision of love, and that's an accurate vision. The vision about a dismal day, everything muddy and dirty and raining, and you're not happy. That is the experience and the vision of a frightened part of your personality. So if you want clarity in your life, you've got to, first of all, have the intention. We call the intention to have clarity creating authentic power. To create authentic power, real power. That means the alignment of your personality with your soul, and that means alignment of your personality with the loving parts of your personality. And when you do that, you enter the realm of love. You enter the realm of clarity. That means you can see things the way they actually are, and you can depend on what you see. If fear were real, like we mentioned before, John Lennon would have written a song called All You Need Is Fear. Everyone knows that's absurd, because fear cannot bring you where you want to go. It cannot create what you want to experience. Where you want to go is into love, and what you want to experience is joy and meaning and purpose and fulfillment. That's creating authentic power. So let's get back to clarity. Here's a takeaway. You can put this in your soul step that I'll tell you about at the end of this podcast. The takeaway is this: when you're seeing through the lens of fear, when you're seeing what a frightened part of your personality is presenting to you, and you are thinking that that is what you are seeing instead of the frightened part, you are not seeing anything accurately. Nothing. When you see through the lens of love, you see everything accurately. You see, for example, a person who's angry, and instead of seeing through the lens of fear and becoming offended and thinking that he's rude or he doesn't know how to behave in public, instead you see it through the eyes of love. You see that he's in a frightened part of his personality, and it hurts. He's in pain. He's in real pain, and he doesn't even know it. And he's creating painful consequences for himself. And instead of judgment of his behavior, you begin to feel compassion for him because you've done the same thing. You know how painful that is, and you know what it's like to create with fear. You push people away. You feel lonely. You're isolated. They don't want to be with you. They won't open themselves up to you. And the world seems alone, lonely, or competitive, dog eat dog. But you're not a dog. The frightened part of your personality looks at itself that way. And so it looks for other dogs to eat or bite or chew. Whoa, what a horrible life to live. Does any of it sound familiar to you? Yes, it does. Because every personality in the Earth School has both frightened and loving parts. And you're learning in this podcast, and as you create authentic power, to distinguish between the two. Creating authentic power is learning to distinguish within yourself between love and fear, and choosing love all the time, no matter what's going on inside of you or outside of you. What's going on inside of you might be resentment, rage, anger, jealousy, hopelessness, despair, and choosing love. What's going on outside of you might be another 9/11 type event, or a natural disaster like a tsunami, a hurricane, or an earthquake, and choosing love. The event stays the same, but how you experience it depends upon how you hold it, and you decide that. The first step is emotional awareness. That helps you to look at what is going on inside you. In fact, that is a way to do it. And then once you see what's going on inside of you, if it's fear, you know that you're not seeing clearly. What can you do? You can use your will, your free will, your volition, to move your attention into a part of your personality that is loved and loving, that is lovable. In other words, a time when you knew you were being loved or you were loving. and choose to speak or act from that part of your personality, from that energy, while you are experiencing the painful physical sensations of the frightened part of your personality and its judgmental, comparative thoughts. That's creating authentic power. That means you're moving yourself away from the dirty windshield and into the outside. You're not even in the car anymore. You're outside. There's a song here in the United States that was popular several years ago. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. You remember that one? I can see all obstacles in my way. You can't do that when you are in a frightened part of your personality. The only way you can do that, to see clearly, to see every obstacle, is when you're in love. And this podcast is showing you how to create that as an ongoing, stabilized experience in your life. Right now, the experiences that are mostly stabilized and ongoing are fear, which means you're not seeing anything clearly. You're seeing them through the filter of anger, or jealousy, or resentment, or superiority, or inferiority. And you're acting on them, and when you act on the frightened parts of your personality, you create painful consequences for yourself. And when you act on loving parts of your personality, you create the opposite, healthy, joyful consequences. Let's put this another way. Unless you're seeing clearly, there's no way that you can give the gifts that you were born to give. And your fulfillment and joy and satisfaction and creativity and vitality all come as you give the gifts you were born to give, because they're all gifts of love. You were born to give them. Your consciousness is moving now in new directions. That's the new consciousness. It's going to take you places that will surprise you and delight you and fulfill you. You have joy ahead of you now, but you're not going to stumble onto it. Your curriculum in the Earth School is love, creating love, but not love that you stumble onto, fall into, bounce up against, or is given to you, but love that is chosen by you. That's what you're learning how to do in the Earth School. And as you're doing it, that is synonymous, the same thing, identical with seeing clearly. That is clarity. That is the removal of all fear from your field of vision and replacing it with what's left. What's left is always love. Love is all there is. Even the fear itself is love. Everything that you encounter in your life serves your spiritual development. So here's a soul step for you. You can use your little journal, your back pocket journal, if you want to, and your little pen, and write down all the times when you can remember seeing things clearly. But that means without fear, without judgment, without any emotional pain, which means physical pain in your energy processing centers. Write down those times. Like I remember when I came home sometimes from school or from the army, and my father would, I could hear my mother when I knock on the door, she would be excited, and she'd say, "It's Gary, it's Gary." And then she'd open the door, and I'd walk in, and my dad, who could still walk then, would walk through a doorway and into the living room, and his face was radiant when he saw me. That's a place that I go to sometimes when I'm in a frightened part of my personality. I remember his face, and I remember the love that supported me throughout his life. And I can say that as someone that I didn't get along with very well for most of my life, and a large part of his. But I see it now clearly. That's clarity. I see all that he gave. I see the frightened parts of his personality and the loving. I see the frightened, loving parts of everyone's personality that I'm with. That's part of the new consciousness. You can do that now. You will be doing that now. And as you do, you'll be gaining clarity in your life. Well, it's so good to talk with you. I'm looking good. I hope I'm looking good, but I'm looking forward to being with you again soon. Be blessed. You are blessed. So remember that. I'm Gary Zukav.